Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Catch. My name is Sam and I am the founder and lead coach here at Catch. Unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything that you want in life and dating. So on this channel we talk about confidence, mindset and how to implement that in your dating and relationship life. If you're interested in coaching or workbooks or our other social media channels, all that information is in the description box below. In this video, we're going to be following on from the last video on recommended reading, and one of the books that we talked about was a book called Attached, which talks about attachment theory and attachment styles, and it's quite a useful theory to understand where some of your insecurities or lack of confidence or triggers might be during the dating process that might be getting in the way of you building a healthy dating life and healthy dynamics in relationships. But we did mention in that video that there's a health warning that we have for attachment theory. So in this video, we're going to deep dive a bit more into what is attachment theory, what are the attachment styles that are talked about in the Attached book, and where do we think that attachment theory is helpful, and where would we put a big health warning on it. So hopefully that will be useful. Got my matcha here, got into matcha quite recently and started making matcha lattes at home, so let me know in the comments below if you're a fan of matcha lattes or not. I really didn't used to like them till a few months ago, so I don't know what's got into me, but they're my latest favourite thing. Okay, so firstly, what is attachment theory? Attachment theory is a concept that relates to adult attachment, and it is a theory that there are different ways that we as adults relate to one another and see relationships with one another, and that can be secure or insecure, and that can play out with any kind of interpersonal relationship. But the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller really focuses on romantic relationships, both in the dating and the committed relationship stage, and how that can play out. And the attachment styles that they talk about in that book are three mainly. And there are a few variations depending on where you read on attachment styles. So I'll cover the three which are in that book, but if you were to go online and research this topic more, it can break it down into more kinds of attachment style. But what is common through all of the literature that we've read is this concept of secure and insecure. The secure attachment style is about half of the population, it's estimated, and those are people who generally see the best in people, are able to trust others and therefore open up and be vulnerable with them. They are able to articulate, well, firstly identify what their needs and wants are in a relationship, and I'll talk mainly from a relationship point of view here, a romantic one, but this does apply in friendships and work relationships and family relationships as well. They're able to identify their needs and wants and articulate them and communicate them in a way which is trying to solve the problem with the person that they're dating or in a relationship with. And as I mentioned, they assume the best, are able to be vulnerable and communicate. So therefore, because of that, they tend to create successful, healthy dating and relationship dynamics in the short term and the long term. So they tend to have more successful relationships, and according to this book, are generally happier in life as well. The other half of the population tend to have an insecure attachment style, according to this book. And what that means is that because of, say, of relationships that you've observed growing up or experiences that you've had during your life, it's created some sort of insecurity and lack of trust to do with how you relate as an adult to other people. And that can present itself in a couple of different ways. So the first insecure attachment style that they talk about is the anxious or preoccupied attachment style. And what that means is typically because someone has been hurt in the past, or say seen relationships break down and someone leave the other person or abandon the other person growing up, or perhaps that's happened in prior adult relationships, they then become anxious and fearful when they could be vulnerable or entering into new relationships. So they become clingier, more needy, fearful that that person could abandon them or will abandon them. And because of that, they tend to attach quickly to potential romantic partners, seek validation from them, and because they're worried they're going to leave, they can, as I say, be more needy, need more communication, more reassurance, and want that relationship to progress faster to exclusivity, commitment, etc., for them to feel safe and reduce that anxiety. And then the other insecure attachment style in the attached book is called the avoidant attachment style. And they estimate that the anxious is about 30% of the total population, and avoidant is 20%, or 1 in 5 people. And avoidant people equally have had negative relationship dynamics that they've observed, or their trust has been broken in the past, and because of that they actually fear intimacy. They depend on themselves more heavily, they're more independent, and therefore the thought of becoming vulnerable and being interdependent with another person feels scary. But their reaction to that is not to try and cling and get closer, it's the opposite. It's they feel safety by creating distance between them and people who are in their lives, particularly in romantic settings. And so they could push that person away, sometimes be quite defensive, not respond for a while, create emotional distance, or seek their own space from time to time. And as I mentioned, if you look online, sometimes it breaks avoidant into different, more specific attachment styles, like dismissive, avoidant, etc. For the purposes of this video, we'll just keep it at a high level, because this is also where the book that made attachment theory very popular. So I want to just stick to that book. But if you're interested, there is a lot of literature online. So why are these attachment styles important, and how can they affect our dating lives? Well, as I alluded to before, if you have a secure attachment style, it's easier to create intimacy, communicate well, you trust others and you see the best in them. And that creates a positive dynamic because the other person can feel that you trust them. You can communicate about issues or about feelings, which minimizes issues before they even start. It means you have less arguments and you have therefore a healthier connection and dynamic, and relationships tend to progress in a healthy way. You get closer to that person, you become interdependent, you bring the best out in each other and you build each other up. If you have an insecure attachment style, whether anxious or avoidant, then what can happen is inadvertently we self-sabotage romantic connections by subconsciously pushing that person away, either through being needy and clingy and having urgency and trying to push it forward, or seeking validation in other people and becoming emotionally attached to people too quickly, which to others can feel disingenuous, and they can feel that you're seeking validation rather than connection in that relationship, which can be repelling. Or if you're on the avoidant side, you can push people away by creating that emotional distance, which also over time, for someone who is secure, can be off-putting. Because of course, when you're building a connection, you want to feel that reciprocity. You want to feel that the person that you're dating is just as interested in you, and you want to have that healthy communication and find safety and security in one another and more happiness by being together than not. What the book also talks about, the attached book, is what there can be a dynamic between couples where one person is anxious, so insecure, anxiously attached, and one person is insecure, avoidant, attached. Because anxious people tend to expect that they will be abandoned and fear that. And because they're fearing it, sometimes we can attract, well, actually very often we attract what we think about and what we expect is going to happen, and subconsciously seek that out, and that's who we're attracted to and what we attract into our lives. So that means that anxious people, because they fear being abandoned, subconsciously attract that type of dynamic with people whereby there is that emotional distance. So they can attract avoidant people. And similarly, people with avoidant attachment can inadvertently end up dating and in relationships with anxiously attached people for the same reason. Avoidant people want to feel independent and feel like relationships, for some, could be suffering and hinder their independence. And because, again, that's what they expect, they subconsciously seek it out, which it tends to be an anxiously attached person who will communicate more and chase that avoidant person down, for want of a better word. And also because avoidant people create that emotional distance, for some secure people, for a lot of secure people, that's actually not attractive. And anxious people are attracted to that. So what ends up happening at times is that anxious and avoidant people can end up together. But that creates a very unhealthy cycle, because the anxious person feels abandonment, so tries to get closer to the avoidant partner. The avoidant partner wants to feel independent and some distance to feel safe, so they pull back from that anxiously attached person, which then further triggers and upsets that anxiously attached person, and it becomes a cycle. And then once the avoidant person has pulled back and feels safe again, they might get closer to the anxious person, and it just creates this cycle. So it talks about that in the book, and how anxious and avoidant partners can communicate better, help each other, create healthier dynamics, and individually and together become more secure over time to improve those dynamics if they are already in a relationship and happy and want to continue that relationship. What is helpful about the attached book, and I mentioned this in our last video, is that our last video on recommended reading, is that you can then build, through reading the book, it tells you what behaviours turn up if you have secure or an insecure, whether anxious or avoidant attachment style. So you can then self-identify from that book what attachment style you have. Maybe some of the problems or the dynamics and patterns in that book resonate with you, so it can help you pinpoint, where am I more insecure? Where am I lacking in confidence? And you might not fit neatly into one attachment style. Some people we all have bits of each, and we can vary. But what are some of the healthy and unhealthy behaviours? What are the unhealthy behaviours? What lack of confidence or insecurity is driving that? And that can then help you build that area of confidence, build your belief in that area, or become more trusting. It can also help you identify if there are unhealthy dynamics which keep turning up in your relationships. What is causing those? Let me just check my notes here. Oh yes. The other thing which is good in the book is it also gives you tips on becoming more secure over time and how to communicate better, which gets us closer to those healthy dynamics that we want, which is brilliant. The health warning that we would put onto attachment theory and attachment styles in general is that we would only recommend that people self-identify based on attachment theory. So if you're in a relationship, what's helpful is for one person or both of you to read the attached book, identify your attachment style, and then figure out, okay, based on that, how is this affecting our relationship? How can we become more secure if needed and improve our relationship from there by us both changing some of our behaviours and improving the dynamics and making them healthier by becoming more secure. Where it's a bit riskier is when we are dating someone or in a relationship with them and we decide what their attachment style is. And it is more risky the less you know that person. So if you've been in a relationship with someone for a while and you read the book, you may very accurately be able to assess their attachment style and therefore suggest some things that you can improve. And that could help. It's more helpful if that other person self-identifies, because then they're more willing to change and see the patterns themselves and work together on it. However, if you are just starting to date someone and maybe been on a couple of dates or been seeing someone for a few weeks or even just talking to them, what we have seen is people identifying others' attachment style based on very limited interaction. And there's a couple of issues with this. The first is that you don't necessarily know that person well enough to make that determination for sure. And often people are different in early stages of dating than they are once you've got to know a person and built a relationship. So just because somebody texts you quite slowly between the first few dates doesn't necessarily mean that they have an insecure or an avoidant attachment style. It might just mean that they're busy. It might just mean that they've read online that they should play hard to get, and therefore that's what they're doing, trying to keep a bit of mystery. Or it might be that they just don't give that much away or give too much of their time to somebody that they're just getting to know, in the same way that friendships and work relationships build over time. You don't meet someone at work and then start speaking to them all day, every day, or meet a new friend and instantly start talking to them all day, every day. Typically those relationships build over time. And so that is what could be happening. So if we assess somebody and just decide that they are anxious or avoidant, we're putting them into a box, firstly, which may not be accurate. And then we can start to see them in that way and analyse all their behaviour in that way, which can become self-fulfilling. We've talked about this in other videos. If you see someone in a certain way, you'll hyper-focus on the traits that match that assessment that you've made and perhaps ignore any evidence that doesn't. And also it doesn't, if we assume somebody is secure or anxious or avoidant, especially the insecure, anxious or avoidant attachment styles very early, it doesn't really leave room for that dynamic to shift as the relationship progresses. We can just badge the behaviour, or it could be a point in time thing. It could be that someone's going through a rough time and that's why we're seeing some behaviours, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's who they are at their core. It might be that they are secure and a healthy person to be with, but it's just that at that point in time they're very busy and therefore not texting as much. So we would really caution against badging someone too early, because then you can start to really pick out, especially in an insecure attachment style, because you can start to really hyper focus on the insecure behaviours, zone in on them and almost feel like they're a problem to fix, when that might not be the case at all. Those behaviours might just improve as you get to know each other and the relationship progresses. So try and keep an open mind is our advice early on. And the other issue that we see, to be blunt and be direct, is that once early on we've decided that somebody that we are interested in or dating has a certain attachment style, we can then, with the knowledge of attachment theory, try and change ourselves or understand their behaviour. We'll understand their behaviour and try and change ourselves based on that presumed attachment style. And there is so much content online about why an avoidant, particularly on avoidant attachment styles, we've noticed, if somebody is avoidant, why they will end it with you, why they will ghost you, why they will come back, what their behaviour means, etc. Because avoidant people, as I say, tend to create distance, so they're maybe more mysterious, harder to read. You know, you might meet someone who's a bit more mysterious, less communication, decide they're avoidant, and then it's very easy to start consuming this content and get into a rabbit hole of trying to read them, trying to understand them, and trying to adapt our behaviour to attract that avoidant person in. And that is really quite a big waste of energy. Because you won't change a person's behaviour by over-analysing it, watching 100 videos on YouTube and trying to understand why they are the way they are. What will change a dynamic is what you assume about that person, because that will affect how you react to them, and seeing the best in them, trusting, and you showing up in a different way. Just trying to overanalyze and watch loads of content is not going to change them. And if we've assumed they're avoidant within a couple of dates and then are watching 50 videos on it and assuming that they're going to abandon us and then come back and all of these unhealthy behaviours, that's so much energy that we're putting into understanding another person that we could be putting into our own lives and enriching our own lives, whilst just trusting that if you really like this person and think they're avoidant, that it's going to be okay, or those behaviours that maybe seem avoidant will dissipate as the relationship gets closer. And as I say, it's just there's better places that you can put your energy. And also, it's more important, rather than understanding their attachment style necessarily, is to ask yourself, is this current dynamic making me happy? Because if you're someone who is secure or anxious or even avoidant, and you're dating somebody who, let's keep using the avoidant example, you believe is avoidant, and they are creating space, they aren't responding quickly, you aren't seeing them as much as you like, that might be fine for some people. Some people want to have a partner that they only see once a week or once every 2 weeks, or they're happy in a long distance dynamic for a certain period of time, and that's completely fine. But if you are going from video to video trying to understand attachment styles and understand the behaviour of someone you're dating, that would indicate to me that that person isn't happy in that current dynamic, and therefore is trying to understand them to regain some sense of control of the situation. Our advice to you would be, if you're not happy, or what's more important is how happy you are in that dynamic. So are the behaviours of that person making you happy right now? If yes, great, carry on, lean into it. If it's not, pull your energy back and focus on making you happy by putting the energy onto yourself. Seeing your friends, pursuing your hobbies, regulating your emotions, doing meditation, breath work, whatever it is that keeps you feeling happy, feeling loved and fulfilled and wanted within yourself. Because the more that you try and understand someone else, you're putting your energy into them, you're seeking validation from them, and particularly with the avoidant content, you almost can start looking for really tiny scraps of indication that that person is interested and it's going to progress, and it might well do. We like to personally believe that anybody can change and grow, and we can create a healthy dynamic with anybody. But the only way that it's going to grow and change is if you stayed anchored in your own confidence, your self-worth, keep your energy on you, and the other person will feel that you're prioritizing yourself and change and open up and want to get closer to you because of that magnetic energy that you have. If you're over-analyzing them and adapting your behavior, you're basically abandoning yourself, your own authentic way of showing up, and you're putting their perceived attachment style and what they want above what makes you happy, and you're self-sacrificing to understand somebody who you believe might have a certain attachment style and adapt your behavior to them, which is it will not create a healthy dynamic if you're doing that early on in the relationship, because you're putting that person on a pedestal, and as I say, you're sacrificing your own needs and wants for what you believe that person wants based on their attachment style. So again, just ask yourself, Is this person I'm dating, regardless of their attachment style, is their behaviour making me happy? Is it the type of relationship that I want and the dynamic that I want? Stay in your confidence and believe, yes, if you really care about that person, through communication and trust and seeing the best, you can create the dynamic that you want. But if it's not making you happy, retract your energy back, focus on you. And to be honest, it doesn't matter what attachment style they are. Just stay focused on the behaviour that you want in a partner and keep on looking for that and expect that and believe that you can have it either from this partner or someone else. Okay, hopefully that made sense. And the other thing that you can do is just decide that the dynamic will improve and change, but the only way that will happen is if you retract your energy back and focus on you and lead the relationship in that direction with confidence. And actually we have another video called Do Not Sacrifice Your Standards for Short-Term Validation, which links to this, so we'll link that either up above or down below. What we do appreciate is that there are people who are already in relationships who have some unhealthy dynamics or have different attachment styles and want to make it work. In that instance, it can be a bit more difficult to just retract your energy and focus on you and change that dynamic. If you want to change that dynamic, you definitely can. People can grow and change. What we would suggest in that instance is do focus on developing yourself, invest in yourself, invest in the relationship, communicate openly the kind of dynamic that you want, what is working and isn't working for you, and see if you can find some compromises. And actually we'll look at doing a video on how to change dynamics in more detail once you're in a relationship. But yes, if you're in a relationship and there are some attachment style dynamics going on and you want to work on that together, the Attached book has some great content on that and we'll do another video later on. But if you're early in dating, as we say, just confidently and fiercely communicate what it is that you want, keep the energy onto you, don't use your precious days and life energy trying to overanalyze their behaviour or assuming their attachment style and then adapting your behaviour to them. The most attractive version of you is you being authentic and confident and knowing what you want and deserve and going after that. Although understanding, as we said at the start, understanding your own attachment style and working to become more secure and more confident is very worthwhile. So hope that that helps in terms of giving a summary on what attachment theory is, the attachment styles, why we think that theory is useful, where to apply it in your life and to improve your dating, and where there is a big health warning. Would love to hear your experiences with attachment styles. Have you done any research on this yourself and understand your attachment style? What has it helped you learn about yourself or your partner or others in dating? What's your opinion on the Attached book? If you've read it, would love to hear any comments or questions down below. Thank you for liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.